All right, you know what? Give me angry. Will you give me angry if you had a bad day? You're cranky? Yeah, thank you. Good, good. Ooh, angrier. Ooh. That's it, more. Yeah, come on, you're big, you're big. All right, destroy me. Destroy me now, yeah. Destroy me, yeah, 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 give it, yeah. I've worked with better, but not many.
X-Men 97 continues to deliver with another banger for the third episode. However, before I get into that, there's a little housekeeping I need to do. I said in my previous video that the people who declared the show woke would try to find something, anything to justify not liking the show instead of admitting they got it wrong. I said that I was nothing if not generous, and boy was I. The usual suspects tried many different angles to attack the show. For example, they claimed that Gambit was being gay-coded because he wore a cut-off shirt. Never mind that this was the look straight dudes rocked from most of the 80s into the early 90s. Johnny Depp was killed in A Nightmare on Elm Street wearing this look. Wearing this makes Gambit look outdated. This was out of style by 97, but not gay. Something easily proven by the fact that in the scene, Gambit constantly flirts with Rogue, a woman. But that's not the one. That's not my favorite. I said before that the usual suspects would claim that Gyrick, Trask, and the Executioner were justified because what they said was actually true and based. And I fucking called it, because that is exactly what these people did. Someone posted a clip of the Executioner beating up Cyclops while ranting about how humans have it worse than mutants, but at least they don't complain about it, and all these people, mostly right-wing people, sided with the Executioner, claiming that the Friends of Humanity, Marvel's version of the Ku Klux Klan, has a point. Here's a little advice. If you find yourself agreeing with the Klansmen, you should rethink your ideas. From the ground up. I saw people arguing with them about this and I'm like, no, I am not interested in that. There's only one thing, one question to ask. If you think the Klansman is based, why do you like the X-Men? At least half the X-Men stories are about mutants facing discrimination. Most of the cast went through that discrimination. If you agree with the Executioner that the X-Men and mutants are just a bunch of privileged crybabies whining about nothing, why do you like the X-Men? If it's because you think they have cool powers, other characters have cool powers. If it's because they have cool costumes, other characters have cool costumes. If it's because they have a mansion and a jet, other characters have mansions and jets. If you agree with the Klansmen that mutants are just whiny losers pretending to be victims, then why do you like the X-Men when they and their stories represent everything you hate? It's a technical question, and I'm just asking because no one else did. And because I know someone's going to claim it, no, I'm not accusing anyone of being part of the Klan. That said, if you find yourself agreeing with them, that's a problem. A personal problem. One I'm not going to help you sort out. Moving on, in the third episode, the show decided to tackle the Goblin Queen story. That's one hell of a story arc to cram into one episode. To be fair, they did a decent job of it, but they had to severely alter the story. It'd take at least 30 minutes to explain the comic book version of the story, and I don't want to do that. So I'm going to give a super condensed version of it. Mr. Sinister created a clone of Jean Grey during the time when she was a Phoenix, but he never activated the clone. When the Dark Phoenix died, it tried to return a part of what it took from Jean back to her while she was in suspended animation, but Jean refused, so the Phoenix sought out someone else and found the clone. It gave the clone life and part of Jean's memories. The clone took on the name Madeline Pryor and didn't know what she was. At some point, she bumps into Scott Summers, who falls for her because she looked and acted like Jean, and he and Maddie eventually married and had a child named Nathan Summers, who eventually becomes Cable. Around this time, Jean is resurrected, so Scott ditches Maddie and his son to go back to Jean. Madeline is hurt by this and eventually gets contacted by a demon who offers her power. A lot of other stuff happens that I'm just going to skip right on over. The gist is that Maddie eventually sees Scott with Jean, gets angry and gives in to the demon, becoming the Goblin Queen. And it all ends with Madeline trying to sacrifice children, including her infant son, to get revenge on Scott and to connect the world with Limbo, but she gets defeated, and as she dies, she tries to take Jean's mind with her, but the Phoenix power leaves her to protect Jean, so only Madeline dies. That is as short as I could get it, and it still makes some sense. And I think that reveals a problem with this story, because there's no way to take that short description and do it in one 30-minute episode. That is at least a 4-parter. If you were to tell the story proper, it might take a whole season. So it was bold for the show to tackle this in one episode. But they did it by drastically changing the story. In the show, Maddie has been living as Jean Grey. She has all of Jean's memories, whereas the Jean from the door has fragmented memories. However, when Beast checks her DNA, he discovers that Mary Jean is a clone, and Jean Doe, as Morph calls her, is the real deal. Maddie denies this, but all the X-Men, including Scott, assume it's true. When he goes to talk to her, she can tell he's lying when he says that he believes her, which is at least true to form. It's not as cold-blooded as ditching your wife and child when your dead lover gets resurrected, but it's still douchey. Then Sinister appears, contacting Maddie on the baby monitor, revealing that he created her so he could create Cable, who he thinks will be one of the most powerful mutants ever. Sinister wants the baby, but Maddie refuses, so Sinister activates his control over her, which turns her into the Goblin Queen. This is the part that makes the least amount of sense in the show, because there's nothing about Mr. Sinister that connects with demons or hell or anything of the sort. It's weird that Maddie would take that name and express demonic powers without some kind of setup. The writers should have changed this, either by giving Maddie a different name or showing something to justify the connection with hell and demons. That said, the animation for this section of the show is incredible. You know where they spent their money. Maddie uses her powers to create horrific scenes for the different X-Men. Jubilee and Roberto get attacked by a creature from the movie they're watching, who then turns into a demonic version of Roberto's mother. Gambit walks in on Rogue and Magneto, getting very close. When Beast discovers that Sinister created the clone, he sends Cyclops and Bishop to get the baby, but the baby and Maddie are missing. Then the baby furniture transforms and attacks Bishop and Cyclops. Sinister also reveals himself to Morph, which has the expected reaction. The only person unfazed by all of this is Beast, who bumps into a creature that looks like a collab between Junji Ito and Miyazaki. The animation is really good. These are crazy morph scenes, which are always fun to animate because it's hard to do them wrong. The stranger it looks, the better it works. It's smooth, well-drawn, well-timed animation, and that continues when Morph tells the X-Men where to find Sinister. When they show up, they're confronted by the Goblin Queen, and the throwdown between her and Magneto is awesome. Again, this is where the production team spent some money because the animation is on point. The one critique again is the lip syncing, and my guess is that the Korean team doing the animation doesn't speak much English, so the mouth shapes aren't accurate. It really does help to know the language when trying to match the mouth movements, because the language's phonetics can sound similar to your own native tongue, but the way they're actually pronounced differs. Anyway, while this goes down, Jean wakes up and Wolverine's first thought is to try to convince her to be with him. She can't control her telepathy, so he has her focus on his mind, where he reveals his love for her. But right as she's about to fall for him, Jean senses Scott in trouble, and so drops Logan to telepathically confront Madeline. I love that they kept in this angle because Wolverine constantly made plays on Jean in the original show, even on her wedding day. He has no limits. Jean tries to talk Madeline down, eventually showing her the day her best friend died, which she telepathically sensed. I think people forget this about Jean Grey, but this was the first use of her powers. Losing a friend is traumatizing enough, but to sense her death, to basically die with her, that's a hell of a thing for a kid to experience. However, this only enrages Maddie because she thinks these are her memories, so Jean shows her Nathan's birth, a thing that only Maddie can own, and something that's untainted by Sinister. This snaps Maddie out of it, and she and Scott take down Sinister and rescue Nathan, who Sinister put into a vat of green liquid to increase Nathan's powers. But Sinister just laughs as he leaves, saying that they've only made the situation worse, and back at the mansion, Beast explains why. Sinister's vat contained a techno-organic virus that was enhancing Nathan, but since the process was interrupted, it's now killing him. This is another major change from the original story. In the comics, Apocalypse infects Nathan, and a sentient celestial starship merges with him to protect him. Then Sister Ascani appears and takes Nathan 2,000 years into the future. All that's scrapped for the show and replaced with Sinister creating the virus, and Bishop taking Nathan to his future in the hopes that Forge from that time can cure him. The weird part here is that Cable's already been in the show. We've already seen his future, and we already know about his connection with Apocalypse, so I don't get this change. Had they spread the story arc over a couple more episodes, they could have gotten in all the Goblin Queen stuff and reintroduced Archangel, who actually plays a role in the Goblin Queen arc, which would have given them a way to bring in Apocalypse and a techno-organic virus. The change does work, but more episodes would make it work better. I don't get why they wanted this said and done in one episode. It's a good episode, but there's a lot crammed in when things should have been allowed to breathe. We needed more time with Scott and Maddie and the baby so that those moments between them had some weight. When Scott freaks out over having to send Nathan to the future and fearing that his son would think that they abandoned him, there's nothing justifying that reaction in the episode. We don't see him being a doting father. We don't hear him talk about how he wants to be different from his father, Corsair. It's understandable that he's upset, but the context is missing. The same with everyone turning on Maddie. It's instantaneous, and nobody deals with what her being a clone means. That's very un-X-Men of them. Claremont made it a whole story arc spanning across several different titles for a reason. They have to deal with it, especially since in the show they don't know when the switch occurred. The only thing they know for certain is that it was at least within the last 9 months because of the baby. That's a lot of time, and they should have to deal with that. At any rate, the episode ends with Current Forge meeting up with Storm and saying that he might have a way to return her powers. That's another story arc that went on for about 2 years, so if they cram that into one episode, they're again going to have their work cut out for them. Considering that Season 2 is already written and Season 3 is planned, I hope this isn't a trend for the show. So far, the episodes have been good, but eventually condensing long stories into 30-minute shorts will catch up to them. There's only so much you can simplify and change before it's not the same story anymore, and at that point, why not just create something new? That said, right now the show is going well. There were some small complaints about this last episode, but again, the episode does work. So far, the show's gotten tons of praise. Most people seem to like it, and those who don't have the silliest but very revealing reasons for hating it. I'm interested to see what happens next. I'm enjoying the show. The writing's good, the acting's good, the animation's good. If the 4th episode is also good, we're getting close to being able to call this a hit. But what do I know? I'm just some guy.